Good evening, everybody, and welcome along to Ely Cathedral Business Group's first Zoom meeting of this year. And what a sad thing to say, eh? Here we are, uh, nearly halfway through the year, aren't we? And we're just logging on to say hello to each other. But hopefully, everybody's well. Just waiting for a few more people to join, and then we'll get started. So if you bear with us for just a second. Now, who's been enjoying the sun today? A show of hands. There's a few of you in here. Yeah, it's been fantastic, hasn't it?
Stuck in the car today, Jeremy,
Oh
unfortunately.
dear,
Stuck
that's
in the
not good.
training room today.
No problem at all. So thanks everyone for joining us. So a little bit of the history of the Ely Cathedral Business Group. We're coming up for 10 years old now. Not quite as old as the Cathedral, who I hear is edging on 1,300 years old. But there you go, we've got a bit catching up to do. But we're a proud not-for-profit organisation that's positioned in the community here in Ely and the villages as a non-religious group to really connect businesses in our community together. So our main purpose is to network together. It's to help and support, inspire and share each other's stories. And that's very much what today's meeting's about. So normally you'll find us around. I'm just going to admit some more people into the room. Sorry, it's going to happen a bit like this. I'm not used to managing Zoom on my own. I normally have a colleague here tapping away next to me to help everybody get in. But normally we meet on the fourth Mondays of every month, and we are starting that again. The next meeting that we're going to have is the 30th of this month at Poet's House. So we're looking forward to getting back into the real world, getting back together again and doing some networking. So that's one of the things that we're looking for. But normally what we're looking to do is hold these events both online and obviously face to face. So the online events like we're doing today, we will do around about once a month. We will have some guest speakers along, but also we will be opening up the room and together we'll collaborate to talk about things that are good, things that are perhaps not so good, and generally be here to support each other. We're also very big on student mentoring and also business mentoring, and there'll be some more about that on our Facebook page and also on our website in the coming weeks. But in the meantime, it's very much about how we can support our community, how we can work together. And today, I thought a really good topic of getting us started and to collaborate together is let's look at business recovery post-COVID. So here we are, sort of 17 months into this pandemic, and I don't know about you guys and girls that are watching. I thought this would probably be 6 to 8 weeks of pain back in last March. I don't think any of us envisaged 17 months later we'd be 2.2 trillion pounds in debt. We'd have an economy that's perhaps not as strong as we'd like it to have been. And of course, there wasn't so much worry about business and earning money and retaining jobs. So it's left us in that pretty difficult position. And I speak to a lot of businesses day in, day out who are, if I had a yardstick and put on there where people are, there's going to be some that are positive for the future. They've had a relatively good time in terms of they've adapted their businesses. They've managed to stay ahead of the curve. They've used the word that we've all begin to loathe now. They've pivoted. Now, that's one of the catchwords, isn't it, that's come out of this. They've pivoted, but ultimately, that's exactly what they've done. They've moved their business model to try and adapt and to change with the existing way that things have been working. And there's some good stories. Furlough, again, if we'd have asked ourselves 17 months ago who knew about a thing called furlough, we'd have looked at each other with blank expressions on our faces. It's been challenging, hasn't it? It's been tough. However, there's good news. There's been some positive support from government to some people. Of course, there is some that have been forgotten in this. And we're not going to make this political because we're a not political organisation at Ely Cathedral Business Group. But some people have been supported. Of course, the furlough scheme has been excellent. It's retained jobs. It's helped people maintain their staff within their business, and of course, prevented that mass redundancy. The bounce back loan, that's been great for a lot of businesses. CBILS has been good for businesses. A lot of the local authority support has been very good. The self-employed support system's been good for those that qualify. So there is some support around there. There's some good news stories, but of course, on the flip side of that, there's some bad stories. And I think all of us in the room today can empathise with some of the businesses that we've all spoken to who've had absolutely no support. Those in professional services have been excluded. Newly self-employed people have been excluded from some of this. But ultimately, there's good and bad in everything. So what I really wanted to focus on today was to open up the floor and just go round to those that would like to comment and just say, how have you found things? Have you found it good? What is the top tip for other businesses that could adapt and what different ways of working. So again, I think a different way for me working, I'll kick it off, is Zoom. Now, I never thought I would communicate by looking down a screen at people. I'm very much a face-to-face person. I enjoy the eye contact. I enjoy the body language. And when I first have a meeting with somebody, normally you try and explore those the things you enjoy together. So it could be family life, it could be golf, it could be cars, and you get into all of that conversation before you go in. But with Zoom, I don't know if anyone else finds this, but you're straight into right, why are we here? And it's quite unusual because, of course, I can only see your heads and shoulders, and you can only see my heads and shoulders. And I assure you, I'm in the office still. I'm not wearing my pajamas just yet. But lots of people have found that draining. Zoom fatigue is another word that will go into the dictionary with furlough and pivot, won't it? We've never had this Zoom fatigue before, where you're concentrating so intently on the person that you're speaking to that you feel tired. But I'm going to ask, I've got to adapt my screen view actually, because I can see all of you. Let's go on to gallery view so I can see exactly who's around. So hands up, who wants to tell us about their experience of the last 17 months? I want to hear the positives and the negatives. And around this here, let's have a chat. Just wanted to point out at this stage that we are streaming this live on Facebook. So if there was something that's quite personal, there isn't just the half dozen of us in this room. It will go to a wider audience who will catch up later. But would anyone like to kick off?
Everyone's gone shy.
Everyone's gone shy. Jonathan's not even sharing his camera. Austin, your hand up, sir. How have you found the last 17 months?
Yeah, sorry, can everybody hear me for one thing?
We can hear you perfectly.
Lovely. Okay, for those that don't know me, I run my own sort of marketing agency locally in Ely. I run the potato race for my sins down the high street in October, which of course didn't happen last year, not sure about this year. That is a fun way of promoting agricultural and bringing farming into Ely. The main farmers that I work for, PR and marketing wise, are potato farmers who go out to, in the main, another sector I represent with a magazine called Chippy Chat, 10,000 fish and chip shops who last March all closed their door, and therefore all of a sudden we had quite a few thousand tons of potatoes on our hands, many of which were sold on the streets, or people, farmers adapted, found new marketplaces, had to very quickly adapt. But the fish and chip shops, who many would say were probably behind the times with as far as technology concerned, very, very quickly, within 2-3 weeks, were open, feeding the nation. And thankfully, we found houses for many of the potatoes that we were promoting. And so, I hold my hat off to many of these people. Are all they're sole traders, are on their own. There are a few chains, there are a few people who've got more than one chip shop. But the great thing was they all came together across the nation through our publication, through the National Federation of Fish Fryers, to share their experiences of how they did it, how very quickly they went online, because they weren't online. They delivered, but previously they didn't have to deliver because people came to them. How they control people going in the shops. So there was so much going on over that space of time, and I'm really proud of what they did nationally and what they're still doing to carry on feeding safely, because where every other restaurant and pub shut. So that's definitely from that side of things.
That's a really interesting point, Austin, because I think there's so many retailers that are out there, and of course restaurants and takeaways, that didn't have an online presence. And it was those that early adopted the website and the online selling during the pandemic and during the first period of it, when I think when the first grant came out, there was a lot that invested some of that money into an online trading, and they're the ones that I've personally seen grow. What about repositioning themselves? Was there any, I mean, it's quite exclusive. If you're a fish and chip shop, Austin, what else could you do? I guess there's nothing else, is there? Or was there any way they could change?
Funnily enough, rather than increasing, the menu choice came down, because many of them had started to introduce new things on the menu, because traditionally probably an older element would probably have fish and chips every Friday. Funnily enough, 80% of us have fish and chips at least once a year across the UK. So they did adapt the menus, but just made them smaller. I think by the delivery route, that did attract probably a younger element. I've got many examples of chip shop owners that had a £5 delivery charge and had an order for one portion of chips and a can of drink. You know, so, I mean, and I sound old saying it, but young people just don't care about the price. They just care about
convenience,
when they have it, what they can have and when they can have it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they learn a lesson there. So hopefully that will help them, move on and I mean, they're not going to stop delivering now. It's or click and collect. They're not. But one thing we did have was lots of rates, lots of commissions that obviously were higher than they should have been. So that chip shop owners were paying 20% and 30%, and now the marketplace has found itself. So they might have been tied to a year with these people, but they're now finding new people, and it's a vibrant marketplace. The app system developers, they've got so many people to have, to go, pubs and restaurants that suddenly started to deliver themselves all had to have an app. So it was a good market. That was a vibrant marketplace place in somewhere that's grown a lot over the year.
Excellent. Austin, thank you very much for your input. I'm going to put him on the spot. Vic, for those of you who don't know Vic and Els, Vic is the new Chief Executive of the Chamber of Commerce for Cambridgeshire. Now, obviously, Vic, you've got your finger on the pulse in terms of businesses. What have you found during the last 17 months? And bearing in mind, I do understand how new you are into your role.
Yeah, just first a mic check. Can you hear me? Because I have been having
problems. Yeah, loud and clear.
Look, you know what? I'd love to give you a complete and comprehensive view of how businesses in Cambridgeshire have been doing and businesses in Ely, but I've been in the role 4 weeks, so I can't tell you everything. But I will tell you this: we've been, and this won't be welcome. I'm sure it won't be welcome, but we've been lucky in our area. We haven't been hit as hard as some other people have. I mean, I've been to a number of events. You mentioned Poets House. I had a face-to-face event there with members last week. And I asked everybody there, sort of how many people do you know were affected by COVID? How many lives were lost to people friends and family? And nobody knew anyone that had been lost. And when I looked, I was surprised by that. And I looked at some of the numbers, and I actually found that the metrics for Cambridgeshire are much, much lower than some of our neighbouring areas. So, for example, we've suffered 4% of our population have been infected with COVID, whereas Northampton, for example, have had 7%. And if you look around, sort of the England average is 7%, and that's a huge difference. It doesn't sound much, but it's nearly double the cases. And my experience coming out of London, hugely different. Know several people that have died as a result of this. My next door neighbour, family members, fortunately not very close family members, but nonetheless a loss. But businesses have had to be even more able to pivot in some of those areas. If I give you an example, one of the roles I had until January was to run the Old Bailey. Throughout COVID, we didn't close for a single day. So managing, what is the #1 criminal court in the world, we couldn't afford to let it close because justice still had to be done. And we'd have between 400 and 500 people a day coming into the court. And you know what, when you're up for gang-related murder, you're not necessarily thinking, oh, shall I wear a face mask when I turn up to see what's going on? And being refused entry, unless you're wearing a face mask, is quite challenging. But the reason that we did it has been proven out. We haven't had a single linked case in the Old Bailey in the entire time that COVID's been running. So if you just think about those metrics, okay, we had to adapt. We had to use 3 courtrooms rather than 1 courtroom for a trial because we had to separate jurors, we had to separate the teams from the close proximity. But it's that sort of skill that I think that astounded people well. And I went to see a company in Huntingdon. Sorry, it wasn't Ely, but give me a couple more weeks and I'll be able to have gone across the entire turf. But I went to see a company in Huntingdon and they haven't closed throughout the pandemic. They've been working the entire time, but oh my God, are they different to what they are now? Not necessarily going online, but having to find different ways of safely having people come to work. My biggest fear is that we're at a point where lots of people haven't come to work, but Austin, in your industry, of course, people had to continue. Fish and chip shops, hey, never mind once a year, I would once a week have fish and chips, and I still do. And I was able to because my local chippy and the supply chain that fed my local chippy was still able to find ways to work. But my biggest fear is when we start to say to people, actually, you are going to have to start coming back to work because not everything can be done via the virtual world. I think we're going to find a lot of people that are quite afraid to come back and won't understand how much businesses have done to try to make it safer for them, and how you can make it safer for people, but you can't make it bulletproof. You can't make it perfectly safe. You can just remove some of the risks and manage what goes on through a lot of common sense. So sorry, Jeremy, if it wasn't quite what you wanted, but
Absolutely,
you know what,
perfect.
my view is it can be done. It has to be done. And we've just got to all do it using a lot more common sense than sometimes we show.
One of the points you raised there, Vic, brings me on actually quite nicely to the point that, yes, of course, there is some employees that are going to have to come back from furlough, and that is a genuine concern for many. Is my workplace safe? Has my employer taken steps to make my employment safe? But there's also a selection of people that are employed that don't want to go back to work because, of course, they've been in the fortunate position where they've been claiming furlough, so they've been getting 80% of their wage, but now they've got to go back to work and they only get 20% increase in wage, but they have to do 100% more of the work. I've heard from some employers in the last couple of weeks that that's been an issue for them, trying to get staff members to come back. And I guess that looking around the room here, there's an expert in the room, which is Ruth Buckley from Truth HR. I know Ruth really well. Ruth, what have you got to say about that? Is this something that you're finding resistance on? And more to the point from employer, what do they need to do? Just if you've got some top tips for making the workplace COVID safe, and what are your obligations as an employer?
Yeah, so I was nodding away going, oh yeah, because I'm dealing with a case at the moment, which is proving very tricky. But because people, whether they are or not, but people are claiming that they're too anxious to come back to the workplace. So then you're tripping into mental health issues, which is that potentially a discrimination issue if you're not handling them correctly. So it's not necessarily just a case of, right, everybody back to work, in you come. But I think the top tips would be communicating well with them. What have you done to make the workplace COVID secure? And if you have got individuals, like this case that I'm dealing with, do an individual risk assessment, because everybody's situation will we've all been sailing the same sea in different ships, or whatever the expression is, but everybody's had a different experience, everybody's personal life is different, and we can't really judge how other people are going to react to it. So it's best to have good communication and those individual risk assessments, and then as an employer you've got evidence that you have tried to do your best by that person, and if they continue to refuse, then obviously they'd be in breach of contract. So
there was an interesting conversation on this morning's breakfast telly, and that was should you be forced to come on and have your second vaccination, your first one, before you return to work, and what if you're fearful of that? And there was a whole new debate there, and there were some interesting points of view. It was probably too political for us to go in tonight, but it'd be interesting to hear how many employees that are asked to return to work will refuse to come back until they've had their injections. Where does an employer stand on that, Ruth? Sorry to put you on the spot again, but if I said to my employer, I'm not coming back, I haven't been eligible for my injection yet, can I be forced to come back? How does that work?
Yes, so you could still require them to come back, so long as you can prove that you've done your COVID risk assessment and you've got all the reasonable steps in place. One caveat to that would be maybe if somebody's got particular health issues, which would make them more vulnerable. So if they were in that shielding category, I would probably say that to allow them time to have their second vaccination before they return might be reasonable. But again, it's all very individual based, and we have no case law, or there is case law starting to trickle through, but we've got very little case law to base things on. So it's careful steps, really.
Yes, yeah. Vic, you've got your hand up. What would you like to say?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, Ruth, 100% on the money. I mean, everybody has got to be treated differently. Everyone's got a different risk and assessment to be done, different journeys to and from work, even if when they get to work, they're in the same environment, different health profile, different age profile. And we've had a situation in the past where we had members of staff saying they didn't want to come to work, but their role was essential. It couldn't be done from home. And we went through very, very strong communications with them all the time, involving them, showing them around the workplace to show what we'd done. But in the end, it turned out that they had to be let go. And we felt that we were pretty safe doing that because we had done exactly as Ruth described, taken all the necessary steps that were reasonable. You cannot put people in bubble wrap and keep them safe in all circumstances, but you must have tried your best, I think, to be able to give them a safe environment. On the mental health issues, we all know that one is coming really fast at us because there are a lot of people suffering from anxiety at coming back, but also because they've suffered from being at home, working from home, not been in social contact with people. So I think we've got a whole chapter that we haven't even yet begun to start to read.
Yeah.
And it's almost relearning some of those skills, isn't it? Social skills. Again, with some people I know that have been off work for 15, 16 months that haven't been in the workplace and they haven't integrated with their colleagues. And that's really quite hard. And it must feel a bit like the first day back at school where you're going into a new class and you've got to reacquaint yourself with everything. It must be the same. And I do feel for some of these employees that have been in that situation. So
sorry, Joe, I was just going to add to that. One stat I do have is one of the bigger pub chains said 15% of staff refused to return from furlough. And that's because they found other jobs. So they've been getting their 80% furlough. In fact, in this chain's case, 100% because the company topped them up. They've been earning 100% from their old employer and they'd found new employment. And so 15%.
Wow,
that's quite
which
a big
of
number.
Course was lawful. The government did say that we were allowed to do that. If you were on furlough, you could seek alternative employment. So yeah, that must be a challenge for that particular company because of course you want your skilled staff back in the workplace. You can't just replace those, can you? And that's a large number. That's a large number. And they sound like they've treated their employees really well by topping it up to the 100%. So
yeah, but I suppose that people that have been waiting or working behind bars for years have suddenly found actually I prefer working in the supermarket or I prefer running my own business that I've started during lockdown. All these different things. So they're just not going back to it.
No, lovely. Anyone else like to mention anything else on that topic before we move on? Wendy, what would you like to say? And then I'll come to you, Norman.
Just the whole team building thing as well. If they do walk back through the door, other people have been doing their jobs, and it's like the team will not feel the way the team did, and somebody's got to be in charge of trying to help them get themselves back into a team. They're all been individuals doing different things, and some of them have felt that it's very unfair. I was allowed to do this furlough, and so I've had some time off with the kids. Then somebody else wasn't allowed to, and there's a team breakdown there, which is inevitable when you've been away so long and everybody's had different things going on. I know somebody came in, saw her desk and said, "Who's done this to my desk?" And it was there wasn't anything there. Nobody'd done a thing, but she was in such a state about walking back through the door and feeling out of it for so long. Do you know what I mean?
I can totally understand that, Wendy.
Mental health issues that you were talking about, Vic, there. I just think team building is going to be a huge thing that we've got to do.
And team building's been one of those things that's been around for a long time. I've worked previously for companies that spend tens of thousands of pounds on team building exercises to try and get us all to work well together. And of course, I feel, as I'm sure Vic does, for the smaller businesses that just don't have that available budget to be able to work towards team building using external things. That's going to be interesting to how that's managed. And Wendy, I agree that the way that affects mental health is going to be a huge issue that we see unfold. And that's something that we'll all certainly keep an eye on. One of the things that we're talking about at Ely Cathedral Business Group is very much about how mental health is a big part of society and an even bigger part actually of the business community. So we've got some speakers coming up a bit later on in the year as our numbers grow. And just talking about numbers, we had about 40 people registered for this evening, but it looks like we've had some technical difficulties for our very first meet. But we will, we've got over 600 members in total, so we will be getting those all on board. And I'm sure when it's face to face, the numbers will be bigger. So I appreciate each and every one of you for coming along today. But Norman, you had your hand up. You were going to mention something. What would you like to say, sir?
Oh, it's just there's people who don't want to come back. It's similar. I've been involved in large redundancy schemes, and often people have taken the opportunity to do something completely different, and probably what we've done is just nudge them. They would have done it on their own, and this is another, again, example that they've been away for 15 months. They could have attempted to do other things, and some of them have done them, and think, I don't want to be doing, I didn't really like what I was doing before. I actually want to do something different, and I found what I want to do. So it doesn't surprise me. 15%, doesn't surprise me at all. It's very similar, and I'm sure others who've observed redundancy schemes in the past when large numbers have gone and walked out the door, how often they are much more comfortable and better off doing another job than the one they were.
Thank you, Norman. So moving on now, I want to talk a bit about the sense of community. One of the things that we're keen to do at the business group here in Ely and the surrounding villages is to really work on a sense of community. And we feel that one of the things that may have been lost in translation over the last 10 years of the business group, and certainly generally in society, is the way that communities integrate with their local businesses. And I wanted to ask the question, what does a sense of community mean to you? It's the first part of the question. And then how have you noticed that adapt throughout COVID? I'll kick it off by saying that one of the things I think that I noticed was around the clap for carers and the clap for the NHS. And that, I feel, kick-started the sense of community spirit around near where I live in the centre of Ely. And it was lovely to see every week people come out and applaud the great work, obviously, the NHS that had done. But that seemed to bring that community spirit around. And I think one of the most heartwarming things I've seen as I drive around the region and again around Ely is that lots of people will put on their doorstep items for free, please help yourself. And I don't know whether that's because people are having a bigger clear out, but who else has noticed that? It seems to be that people are just wanting to gift things to their community and generally be nicer. Who else has experienced that, and what impact has that had? Norman, I saw your hand first. Far away, sir.
I live in well, it's a cul-de-sac, Arundel, around Arundel and such like, which is just by the high school, and we're three roads in the cul-de-sac, and there's a WhatsApp group with probably must be 40 members, and there's lots of appeals for doing things on the green. We got a green, which I think is Crown land, but is regularly being mowed. People have planted bulbs, and when there's an appeal for something there, it's I'm trying to do so and so. Has anybody got one of these? And the answer is always more than one person has one of those. And I've got half a barrel of cement. Does anybody want it? Lots and lots of things of that. It's daily. There are things, and especially going out shopping earlier in, I'm going to the shops. Is anybody locked in? Because there are several people who were vulnerable and were locked in. Do you do anything? It's almost like your neighbour with a cup of sugar, but on a slightly larger scale. Yeah. So yes, there's been a lot of community. I think we're all going to have a big party on the 30th of August. Celebrate the end of all this.
And Norman, did that integrate people that otherwise weren't connected to communicate together?
I think, some people, some of your neighbours, but you don't know all of them. And yes, I think it connected a lot of people who wouldn't have otherwise connected with one another. You might know 2 or 3 of your neighbours, but this is connected a whole lot of people to help one another.
And that's a lovely positive. Jonathan, I can see your hand up, sir. And then I'll come to you.
Jeremy, can I apologise? No video. I'm one of those with a technical problem, but I think it's maybe because I can't get Wi-Fi.
No problem at all.
We've obviously had the discussions very much, yourself and I, regarding this, because community is something that my business has done for the last 20 years. We've always been very keen to sort of help pay back for what we've taken out. People have always got a choice. I run a chain of convenience stores, and people have always got a choice to go from my independently run ones to one of the major multiples, Tesco Express, Sainsbury's Local, etc. So what can we do to sort of pay people back? And we've always been, there's what I call checkbook community, where you just literally write a check and say, there you go and sponsor a local team of something. Or there's actually sort of putting back into the community where you organise, such as, and Ely's obviously a huge beneficiary of the wonderful Ely Litter Pickers Group, who've done a phenomenal job. So I've seen a lot of the larger companies have donated litter picking equipment and got involved in that way. So my business was one of those that didn't close. Obviously, convenience stores were a key need for all the communities we serve. Plus, we've got 17 post offices in them, so we didn't have an option but to remain open. And we've found the communities actually very much got behind us, and our team are now seeing that they seem to have gained a different level of respect within the community what they had before. And there again, we're now going to start paying the communities back and sponsoring local events and holding various sort of community functions that we can anywhere in our shops or near our shops, just to sort of pay back the community, say thanks ever so much for supporting us through such a torrid time. That's my sort of take on it, really.
Yeah, Jonathan, appreciate your comment. Thank you. Louise, your hand went up.
Yeah, hi everybody. This is my first time here, so
You're more than welcome. Lovely to
thank
see
you.
you. Thank you for
Good
joining
to be
us.
here, because actually joining because of community. So I'm self-employed. I run women's workshops and women's circles, amongst other things that I do. And you know, during this time I've been shielding, so it's kind of like, you know, community is like, I just want one. It's like one person would be good, but I think that, so for me, there's something about, as I come out, to realise that, you know, I spent a lot of time in Cambridge. I do live in Ely, and I want to have more community around Ely. That's what I'm really kind of focused on now. So that, you know, this is why I'm here. And what I noticed in my women's circles, which did go onto Zoom very easily, that actually, as well as the sort of people, you know, the women that used to come before, we attracted actually quite a lot of women, because I mean, the circle really, it's about sharing. And during this time with mental health, etc., and people being in isolation, actually it grew, which was quite amazing. So I think, so for me, there's something about having a more local community, and I've also really loved the sort of the Facebook groups that have come up, you know, Eco Ely, or the one on COVID, where people just ask things. And yes, I mean, I just think that is just such a lovely thing. And what I would like to see is that kind of nurtured and be a part of that. Because,
how would you like to see it nurtured? Are you talking about entrepreneurship? Are you talking about community? What specifically would you like to see?
Well, I mean, I think it's community, different things springing up. Because, like, for example, I've noticed, you know, some very daring people starting new businesses, you know, on the high street. And so it's kind of, I probably don't really know the answer to that question as such, but I think it's through, say, something like this, that we can actually support each other, getting to know each other's businesses. How can we connect together? How can we, you know, I don't know, what I do can also go in with what Wendy does, you know, whatever. I think it has to be something very conscious, actually.
Well, there's a lot of strands to that, isn't there, Louise? Because what Norman mentioned when he gave some comments earlier about the WhatsApp group with 40 neighbours in there and how they were all helping each other out, we almost need to get that on the wider scale, don't we? And I think the vision that we have at Ely Cathedral Business Group, and that's something that's been one of their values for a long time, is to absolutely integrate that community. So it's about not only businesses communicating together, but how, as an organisation, we communicate to the wider general public and private members of our community. And that's why we're going to do a lot more activity around that. But yeah, it's interesting to see how the community will grow. And it's almost as though we're rewinding, I'd have said probably 30 or 40 years, where there really was that community aspect. Because, of course, we weren't all doing this all day, were we, 40 years ago? We weren't on our phones, and of course we weren't on Zoom. It was very much a community atmosphere and a community that we were all a part of. And we have lost that, haven't we? Jonathan, your hand's gone back up. Then Wendy, I'll come to you straight
That's
after.
okay.
I apologise.
No, don't apologise.
I don't know if you can do such a thing as pocket hand, Jeremy, but I've just done it, I'm afraid, if that is the case. But yeah, I think that's absolutely what's been said there. Is the community aspect is wonderfully, really quite. If there is a positive from the pandemic, I think it's how it has brought community so much back together again. We've seen lots of stuff. A friend of mine, he very much went into the community and said, I've got all the products here in my store, but I've absolutely no way of getting it out delivered to you. And each little village in the area just formed a group that did all the home deliveries to various people. Just went and he delivered it to a village hall in each village and picked it up. And it was all done with volunteers. It was absolutely wonderful to see. There's been some amazing stories around the country, and literally there's been amazing stories around here as well. And I think that's something that business can genuinely do from the heart. We can pay back. We're all let's face it, our team members all live in the communities that we serve from our business. So it's only right that we pay back in some way.
Wendy, I'm going to come to you next, and then Ruth, I'll come to you. Thank you.
Well, I don't know whether what I'm saying is sort of appropriate at the moment, because the community thing for me, what took me by surprise, sorry, I'm not making sense at the moment, but what took me by surprise was when I was running courses, and we never closed, we had to run courses all the way through, because I was teaching the guys to do the pronation and everything in the hospitals and all that kind of thing, the intensive care guys. We're working all the way through, but I had lots of staff on furlough. So there were times when I'd be at the office, I would have maybe 5 people in the room. We'd have to have very small groups, and I was teaching, but I also had to kind of run the office. And what I actually found was that the group did that as well. I mean, things like I'd go to the loo, come back, and I'd find a great big pile of stuff in the middle of the room because there'd been a delivery and they'd signed for it for me, and they were doing stuff like that for each other as well. And at one point somebody said to me, well, you really ought to have the phone in here. The trainer, I've got the office phone beside them in the training room. You're kidding me. And they said, well, you'll have to, because you've got nobody on the phones, and it's really important that you take your calls. You've got to keep going. And so it was if you like, sort of an internal community, but they also did it for each other. They were exchanging things. People were bringing stuff in. Someone would say that they needed something they couldn't get, and the next day on the course that would come from other people. And normally, of course, it's all very formal. Everyone is sitting there, you know, listening to the trainer and being terribly good with their phones off and everything in the training room. And it was a completely different feel. It was just like a load of friends together who would stay friends from then on. It was a very different feel. And still is. I mean, I'm trying to maintain that now. It seemed that taught me something. I thought actually this is very good for business. If people feel this is a lovely, friendly place to be, then they're going to come. So maybe that was the wrong reason to do it, but it is just lovely. And the things they did was just amazing. They were helping me run the place.
Lovely, thank you, Wendy. Ruth, I'm going to come to you, and then Austin, I saw your hand up. Ruth, far away.
I just want to, Wendy, that's really lovely, actually, because I've seen that and heard that from other people.
Oh, right.
Just suddenly people are just, I think the sense is people are just maybe a little kinder to each other, less judgmental.
Yeah. Kindness,
as a rule. But also, Louise, you mentioned Eco Ely, and so I admin on the Eco Ely Facebook group, a friend of mine that's set it up. And the Eco Ely Trash to Treasure, so coming full circle to your freebie stuff, Jeremy, it's just gone mental, that side of the page. We get the number of things that are being put up there, and people feeling they can request things that they need as well. And people are getting responses. It's just really lovely. And that we have a before and after with that group. So we know we had it running for a year or so beforehand. So we know it wasn't that well used, whereas now, whether it's more people have found it or people are throwing out more stuff, I don't know.
Thanks, Keith. Austin, what did you want to
It's
say?
just nice.
Well, threefold really. First off, my wife, amongst many other people, started to volunteer at Cathedral in January. So many of you have probably seen you if you've had a jab there. She's seen people faint. She's collected people in wheelchairs. She's parked people. She's been inside with stickers. She's done everything but the jab. I think there is a call for some sort of celebration on July the 4th for people that have volunteered. So that sounds quite nice. So maybe we can do something special in Ely. So that's the first thing, is what a brilliant thing that is. The volunteers came out of nowhere for that. So keeping that feeling going afterwards, volunteering for other things, there's a whole bank of people that couldn't get into it. So, you know, where is that database? Where are those people? How can we collect up that enthusiasm as we go forward? Absolutely fantastic. Secondly, the stories I see especially on, forgive me, there are other websites out there, but Spotted in Ely, every day there are stories of people who have helped, they've collected rubbish, they've done this, they've done that, and that every day, that lifts your spirits for free. I think not only have they done something good, but you see they've done something good, so therefore, does that promote you to do something good? That's absolutely fantastic. And thirdly, very quickly, marketing is my job, PR is my role, but marketing is bringing people together, I believe. So therefore, I've got many things that I do that have got people that want to slot into doing things. I do things like the potato race, which raises sort of £2,000-3,000, which, you know, we need people to get involved with. I also look after the PR and sponsorship for KD for their panto. 12,000 people gather at Christmas. Hopefully, fingers crossed this year, we don't just do half a run, but, you know, professional pantomime in Ely, fantastic. You know, you don't have to go to Peterborough, Cambridge, Norwich, wherever. And that's just grown and grown. And I do believe they're doing an open air cathedral performance in 3 or 4 weeks' time. So there are plenty of people around, and I'm gathering more people as I'm still new to this area. I've been here only 16 years, but you know, I'm gathering more people into my little chest of partnerships, and it's brilliant. This place is just absolutely fantastic to live.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. I can't see if your hand's gone back up or whether you haven't put it down for the last one, but if you'd like to say anything, please.
No, sorry, I hadn't put it down for the last one. My fault.
No problem at all. No problem. So it's great to hear these stories of community, and I suppose what's going to be interesting is when it may happen on the 21st of June, we don't know, but if we go back to full freedom, and of course we don't know if that's going to happen or not yet, will that change in community happen? Because I suppose more people will be commuting and places like Ely will become more of a commuter city. Will it revert to not being so community orientated? I think the answer to that is no. I think that will remain, from what Norman and Louise has said, and again what you mentioned, Wendy. I think we've seen this change for the good. So we need to all focus on that, and I know part of what we're going to do at the group is absolutely around that. And Austin mentioned Spotted in Ely, and that's one of the things that we're going to be working closer with to make sure that businesses that are part of our organisation can reach their audience, and again vice versa. So very much what our plans are going to be is around face-to-face meetings, as I said, and the first one, note for the diaries, is the 30th of this month. It's a Wednesday. Now, we used to meet on the fourth Mondays rather. It used to be the fourth Monday of every month, and we will be returning to that fourth Monday because Monday is a great day for us to meet. It just happens that this month, Wednesday was the best day that Poets House could fit us in. So we're really looking forward to some face-to-face networking there. You must book on the website, as you did for today's event. It's book online because the numbers, as you can imagine, will be very limited. But we're really looking forward to getting back to that face-to-face and combined with the online way of working. And I think when we all look at our day roles, we all see that we've got a bit of this hybrid, haven't we? We've got a bit of office work, a bit of Zoom, a bit of being out in the field. And I think that's here to stay. Who's found that works for them? Does anybody have a particular view on they like it, they don't like it? And how do you see things progressing for your individual businesses and your individual roles? Louise, and then I'll come to you, Vic.
So for me, again, obviously, as a sort of a self-employed, and you know, I've been talking to the women that I work with, and some just can't wait to get back into physical meetings. And then there's others who, oh, you're still going to do Zoom, aren't you? So, you know, I see my business as kind of like doing both things. I think the word is hybrid, isn't it?
Yes.
That I will be doing Zoom stuff, one-to-one and meetings and circles, as well as physical stuff as well. Because as been said before, you know, people are just so different as to how they're going to emerge out of this.
Yeah, thanks, Louise. Vic, what about you guys at the Chamber?
Yeah, I mean, look, I saw some research recently that came out, which I thought was reassuringly honest. At the start of this, when people were working from home, if you believe them, absolutely everybody was far more productive at home than they were at work. And that's fantastic. But I mean, I think just now, one of us, doesn't matter who it was, had to go and meet Waitrose at the door. Sometimes the dog's barking, sometimes. And I must admit, I always was ever so slightly cynical that everybody was far more productive working from home than they were working from work. And this research that I saw was basically, it was pretty split. 30% said we've been more effective working from home. And about 34% said, some days good, some days bad. And the other batch, for the mathematicians among you, I think it's 36%, said actually, no, we've been far less productive at home, but we enjoyed it so much more that we don't want to go back to work. And I just thought that was nice to finally hear. And in the end, we are going to face this challenge where there is a time where some people will have to come back that don't want to. And I just think that hybrid working is fantastic. We even played with, and I've seen some of the companies I've talked to did this rather effectively, better than we ever did, where they would have hybrid and face-to-face. In the midst of the lockdown last year, when it wasn't completely locked down, I think we had a period of about an afternoon in October where we weren't fully locked down. No, I exaggerate. There was a window where we weren't locked down, and people were toying with the idea of doing both hybrid and non-hybrid, but it really didn't work. The people on screen just couldn't get a word in edgeways, and the people in the meetings were having far more effective conversations offline. So where I stand is I think there's a space for this. I think that people won't want to commute, but I think we're going to find that there are times when people have to come back to work to be as effective as they need to be and to be supporting one another properly, as I think Wendy talked about earlier with the team type of thing.
Thank you, Vic. Wendy, with your business being so hands-on, can you do virtual training? Because of course, if you're going to be resuscitating one of the dummies, you can't really do that on Zoom. How does that work for your business? Is there a bit of choice?
I personally don't do the Zoom. I do have members of the team that do, and they tell me it's going very well. I haven't looked. I can't do it. I really can't. But in the classroom, I mean, I do moving and handling face to face. I do moving and handling and first aid and other things as well. And we haven't been able to touch each other. So we have had some laughs. Can you imagine? This is how you put a sling on yourself. You put it on you. But no, I mean, certainly, well, Norfolk County Council is one of the main customers that like the Zoom, and they're finding it very, very good. Because they've got people from all over the place that can get together to do it, and our trainers are doing it very well. I know. Personally, I want to be in the classroom with people, and I find it very difficult, but it is going well, and some customers do like it very much indeed. So yeah.
Thank you very much. Austin, people in PR and marketing seem to love all the online things. And I say, when I'm on a big Zoom call where you've got perhaps 50 or 60 people in the room, you can almost tell the PR and marketing people, because they have a really nice backdrop, as you have, and they've embraced it, haven't they? Do you think it's efficient for your kind of business to go back to face, or is this the future for you?
No, I love meeting people. I mean, I'm not saying I don't love meeting you on a screen, but I'm tactile, so I like to be with people. You know, you can tell, you can smell, you can taste, well, not quite taste, but you can. This is very one-dimensional. I'm a three-dimensional person, so yeah, I can see the benefits of both. What I've got to say earlier on, which I must say, is an advert for National Fish and Chip Day, which is this Friday, June the 4th. So you must have fish and chips this Friday. So I'm going on a train. For the first time, I'm going to go and see a few people I haven't seen for a year and a half. I'm going to Haxby near York to have some fish and chips. So yeah, I'm desperate to get out.
Fantastic.
I'm in this little box.
Yeah, just crawl out the little box. Vic, I'm loving your backdrop there. That's, I think, one of the absolute best I've seen.
Lovely fish and chip shop in Rhodes.
Jonathan, I'm thinking that you're probably one of the people on the call today who absolutely couldn't do with virtual customers. It just isn't going to work for you, is it? So for you, you've mentioned already that you're working, you've been open because you're an essential service. Do you expect to see an increase in footfall once we return to some level of normality?
Yeah, we're seeing it, definitely seeing it come back. So a lot of my stores are in bus stations, so we're heavily reliant on commuters. We're heavily reliant on people going back into city or town centres. So yeah, as each lockdown has, or each part of the where they've sort of started to unlock us, has had huge impacts. Like 20% impact. The last one, the one before that was a 10% uplift. So it certainly happened, and we were hoping, obviously, like everybody else, the 21st of June was going to happen and just get people back in and hopefully see an uplift there. But I won't say we're back to pre-COVID levels, but we're getting towards that now. So yeah, we obviously we can do home deliveries. We have been doing home deliveries, but I'm not overly keen on it. Convenience stores are all about being at the right place at the right time. So. That's pretty much where we're going from, really.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jonathan. Anyone else got anything to say? Anything else to add on that particular topic? No, thank you very much. Well, it's just left for me to really then say that, as I mentioned, I've plugged it already, but the 30th of June at Poets House, please come along. It'd be lovely to see that you've all got legs and that you're there, and you're all able to come and by then we might even be able to shake hand or do the virtual fist pump.
What time is it?
It's at 6 p.m.
It is at 6 o'clock.
And if you're all subscribed to our newsletter, which you can do on our website, that would be worth doing, because we have had a GDPR issue where we've lost an awful lot of subscribers since we've reinvigorated the database. So I'd urge you all to just make sure you are registered there. There'll also be some details of the student mentoring and also the business mentoring coming up. And I'm really passionate, as I know a couple of other people are on the call, about the work that we're going to do with young people in the businesses of Ely and the villages. So watch this space. Once again, thank you very much for taking part. Our audience on Facebook probably like a wave. So if we can all give a wave and all smile, lovely. Best group I've seen. Is all because of Vic's backdrop is what's made us all so happy. But have a great evening, everybody. Thank you very much for your support, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Jeremy,
Bye.